only a short little speech, but if you don't mind listening for a moment, I really appreciate it. So having a look at papers recently, when I put papers out, there are a couple of bits that kind of screamed out to me. I hope everyone here is quite aware that we are living in a very, very right-wing country at the moment, with a very right-wing, pro-racist government run by very rich people that don't give a damn about the poor or people that are suffering. So there were a couple of bits that Waberman, if I've said that right, a couple of points that she was saying that she really wants to hit on the recent right-wing Tory racist rally, whatever you want to call it. There are a couple of things that she really wants to promote, and I just want to point out the problems with these things that she wants to promote and her Tory party wants to promote. She says she promises to close down immigrant hotels. But the question would be, where do these desperate people go when they arrive? If we're closing down the ability to shelter suffering human beings, people trying to seek shelter, how is that? I don't see how that's a good thing. Why would we shut that down? And why are they promising to sell the idea that we need to close these hotels down? It's not these immigrants, these human beings that are robbing you. It's the rich that are robbing you. It's those people there that are trying to get you to hate on people escaping war and poverty and religious persecution, which the rich are quite happy to profit from and to keep pushing forward, and then they get you to go and then hate on desperate human beings. She says she's refused to be cowed by the privileged woke minority, who she says who brands the Tory party and her racist.
When he says
the reason I would call her a racist or the Tory party pro-racism
got a question
is because that's what they want to achieve. Sorry, what else?
When you say she, who are you referring to?
Sueda Waberman. If
Okay.
I've said the surname right, I'm never. You know who I mean.
I know who you're speaking about.
Okay,
now.
cool.
Thank
That's
you.
cool. But it's sort of her.
Troublemaker, how you doing?
The royal she.
Sorry?
The royal she. Her and her cohorts.
Yeah. So she says she's refused to be cowed by the privileged woke minority who brand her and her party racist. The reason someone like me might brand her a racist is because she is a racist, and because her party promotes racism and hate and division and cruelty.
It's mostly emotions. Like
The
as
way
soon as a
Chinese
brown person
word
goes against
woke,
the grain,
they try to use the word woke to distract them.
they don't see minorities as actual people.
That they
just
are
see them
racist.
as
They like to call me woke as though I'm somehow a bad person or my argument doesn't count. They are pure racists. When you start to dehumanize people, you start to promote racism and fascism, and you make excuses for how you can then mistreat that person, whether it's religious or a person's sexuality or their whatever. You know, that's how they do it. The goal is to remove the humanity of a person, because then you can do what you want with them. We saw that with Nazis.
This is very subjective.
Trump.
This is very
And
subjective.
we see that today. She insisted that the British public back their tough stance on immigration.
Why
The
not?
reason they
Why are we
want
not allowed
you
to have borders?
be tough on immigration is they
Why are we
want
not
to
allowed to
encourage
solve
you. Sorry, I will come back. I want to see. They want you to forget who you are as a human being. You as a human being are capable of incredible levels of empathy and sympathy and
What about
caring.
strength?
We see it
What about
again and again.
sustainability?
When things seem their worst, at their
Responsibility.
absolute worst, i.e. a pandemic, we see the best side of people come out. The people that will sit by a stranger's bed and hold their hand while they're dying. That's human, that's humanity, that's beautiful, that's an incredible the thing. So why are we encouraged to look the other way when people escape war and poverty and want to have a second chance
People
at
are
a
not
better
taught
life?
responsibility.
Why are we encouraged to not see them as human beings?
Because we all want to see ourselves as
Sorry,
victims.
did you want
What's
to? I can go.
two questions. What's your stance on immigration? And in regards to the hotels, where's the money for the hotels coming from? I'm not disagreeing with you on anything. I just want to see you back your stance.
Where's the money coming from?
Where's the money? Who pays for the hotels? And in other words, there's a finite set of money. There's money going to pay for these hotels, which I don't necessarily disagree with. These people deserve to have accommodation and health care and all of that. But there's money coming from someplace and not going someplace else. Where does the money come from? What pool does it come from?
I'm not understanding where the
Public
money's
borrowing.
going.
It comes from future
I won't-
generations, from public borrowing.
I won't
what I'm
lie
asking.
and make up an answer.
Okay.
I'd go and look,
What's your-
do more research. I
What's
wouldn't
your
just-
stance on immigration?
I think people should be welcome here.
I agree,
Everybody.
but I mean,
You know, I think that
We can't
obviously,
accommodate the whole world.
obviously we can't just say everyone come here at once.
You know,
need
the system's
infrastructure
broken, they
to
let
support
me in.
people. Sorry. But what we can't do is turn our back on people that are in need,
Okay.
that are escaping
France.
war-torn countries,
France.
escaping religious persecution.
Northern
obviously
France.
they are. You know, there are women that if they were
Escaping
stay in their
Northern
countries
France.
they're
We don't
escaping
want to,
from.
we don't want to live in a
This
tent in
gentleman
Northern
has-
France.
I'm not
has a
sure if he
valid
has
point.
an actual point.
I think
or
he does have a
just
valid
shout.
point because he's
Sorry.
saying that they're coming from
They're
northern
escaping Northern France. They don't want to live in a tent in Paris.
How many people come into this country legally every year? How many people come in?
1.2 million in the last 2 years.
How many people come in illegally?
They have
don't know.
money. They have Swiss
Tiny,
bank
tiny,
accounts.
tiny.
I don't
What
know.
are you concerned about?
We can't accommodate the
I'm
whole
not
world.
sure.
The whole world doesn't want to come here.
How do you know? How do you
Doesn't want to
know?
come here.
So how
Only
okay.
tiny people.
What if they do?
Okay, I'm going to carry on.
Tiny people.
Because these guys can have their argument.
How many refugees do you have in your house?
Don't,
Yeah,
how,
no,
How many?
He
How
doesn't have
many?
room.
No.
Don't try that one.
Yeah, don't try that one. But you can afford to pay £8 million a
They're
day.
trying to distract you. I'm not going to let you.
£8 million a
The
day.
last thing, Shmada Braverman, one big thing that she also wanted to kind of really shout about, which is extremely important to every human being here. She says she's vowed to get the Just Oil protesters off Britain's streets with new laws. We have to think about what that means when they bring in new laws to combat protesting. To be clear, and it's extremely, extremely important, every single person here has the right to protest. You have the right to stand up and say you disagree with something. You have the right to protest in front of me right now. That's the country we live in, and if we cherish freedom and cherish who we are, we have to defend that right to protest, and we have to keep doing it when we see a government or a group becoming so powerful that they start to take away your rights. Because what the Tories are doing and what we have people in power doing right now and what religious groups would like to do is to take away your ability to protest and say, no, I disagree. And I would like to get with a group of people that also disagree. We would like to walk down the street peacefully, non-violently, disrupting, possibly, that's fine, to make our point and to be heard. That's extremely, extremely important. The fact that she wants to close that down, the fact that they want to take away those rights, tells you the end goal of what these people want. They want us to be silenced. They want us to cower. They want us to not use our voice and our power to mobilize, because we have that power. History tells us we can change things. Nothing is set in stone. Everything can be turned around, no matter how bad things seem. Everything can be turned around. We don't have to accept the nightmare we're in. We can change it. Every person can change it. So the fact that they want to bring in laws that take away your right to protest, gradually it will happen overnight. It won't be tomorrow. But they can't just go tomorrow, right, you can't protest anymore, because that wouldn't work. People would be upset enough do something. So they have to do it gradually, a little bit. They loosen the screws a little bit by bit. You can't. You can mobilise. You can only make so much noise. You can mobilise only if you ask our permission. You don't ask permission to protest. You do it. You don't ask permission of the government you're protesting against. You get out there and you make noise. You bang drums. You create a disturbance. You get people to listen to what you're saying. And if you have to block the streets so that people see what you're doing, it encourages people to think about what you're doing, and people will go away and research for themselves, and then maybe they'll want to join your protest. But the idea that we demonize people for peacefully protesting is absolutely wrong. Just tomorrow, it could be your rights that are taken away. And when there's no one to protest for you, what will you do? There'll be no one. And do we want to live in a country where we can't protest against the government, or we can't stand up for what we believe in? You don't want that country. No one wants that country. You might as well go to North Korea if you want that. It's a fact, isn't it? We don't live in that country, and I don't want us to live in that country.
Sorry, excuse me. Bearing in mind what's just happened with like COVID,
Yeah.
you know, obviously so many people, you know, we had our rights taken away from us then. I didn't see many people protesting. I think that's my problem. I think what you're saying is right.
Thank you.
But I just don't know if people will do. It's the same with, I don't know, when they put up the cost of living, for example. I remember talking to lots of people saying we need to protest against this. No one would. So do you think, I know you're saying that people should, but do you think that people actually would?
I think, like, when you think of what protests that kind of happen through history, like what are the things people stood up for, sometimes it takes a certain individuals to kind of spark the kind of, because you have to ignite people, don't you? You have to get people to go from saying I disagree with this to I'm going to put this on the banner and I disagree with this, and to kind of get out on the street, and because it's a brave thing to do that. It's a brave thing to do that. But I think sometimes it takes a certain event to trigger that kind of movement, or it's just certain individuals that are capable of doing that. I'm not one of those people. But historically, there's been incredibly brave human beings, and sadly, they're like in the minority. But the change they spark is incredible, absolutely incredible. I'm inspired because my uncle, who he was during when Nelson Mandela was in prison. There are people done an all day or all night like non-stop picket, and my uncle was one of the people that started that. And I was like, wow, you know, I can't live up to that, but I completely get why he was doing it and why those people done it. And even though they didn't have the whole country on that picket line with them, they still contributed to changing something, to be remembered, you know, because they're still remembered now. They at South Africa House, they still, some of the people that are alive, I think they still meet, and they have murals of those people on the walls that I'm told, the guy who works there told me about it. So history will remember people that can try and make a change, sometimes for the worse, but hopefully for the better, those people will remember. So the idea of you, if you think that you can't do anything or you can't change anything, then maybe think about why you've been encouraged to think like that. And just think to yourself, no, of course you can change things. But it takes the right people at the right time sometimes. Maybe the mix has to be just
Can I
right.
interject?
Yeah, of course you can.
Talking about South Africa. Do you know what the state of South Africa is right now?
No, I don't know, but
Yeah.
I wasn't talking about the politics sort of now. I'm just talking about, you know, them trying to change something.
Even the oppressors, or the ones that get oppressed, end up becoming the oppressors. So what's to say protest today we get into some situation where we have to enforce our own laws? Don't we become the oppressors?
I get where you're coming from. That is an interesting.
But what is it you're saying?
How
What
I
is
think
it
about
saying
it.
to protest for? Like our freedoms, basically.
Well, because
Yeah.
I want
So regardless of who the the government is, you should always have those rights. They're indelible rights, aren't they? You know.
You should. I think for me, I was just saying it's whether or not people
live in a
follow.
democracy.
And what I've seen myself is that people
You asked about COVID, but all he did was waffle on a load of old nonsense. He never mentioned COVID, and that's what you asked him about it, because he backed the other side. You see,
right.
he's pro lockdown. He was one of the authoritarian
Well,
ones.
let's not all.
But he never said that.
Obviously, I was pro lockdown.
Yes,
well,
very
what is
authoritarian.
your-
Just like the new
what's your
left, very
thoughts on that now, then?
authoritarian.
It's about human beings.
Sorry, mate. What are your thoughts on the lockdown now then, with hindsight? And I mean it very respectfully, because obviously, you know, things, in terms of the general consensus, things have shifted a little bit. I personally was against it from the get-go, but I wouldn't, disparage anybody who had a different opinion. What's your opinion now, just out of interest? And if it started to kick off again, they said there's a new variant, and we have to start wearing masks, we have to get locked down, what would your thoughts be now?
My thoughts would still be the same. If the science says that a virus is spread that way, with large groups of people being together, I had to work through the whole thing. I worked in a shop and we had to stay open.
Yeah.
So I felt a lot safer when we controlled people in the queue. They wore a mask. I had to wear a mask. I didn't like it, but I had to. It wasn't comfortable, but I feel better that if I had it, that I'm not spreading it to an elderly customer that might come buy their lottery ticket, whatever. I don't want to be responsible.
I worked in a warehouse all through lockdown, and I was on a 0 hours contract. The people who've been there a long time were on full pay if they went sick. When lockdown first began, a lot of the full-time staff went off sick, but all the people like me that was on hourly pay, we didn't go down sick. There was virtually nobody off through COVID. We all worked full-time because if they didn't work, they didn't get no pay. It was the COVID thing was just another form of flu. It wasn't rabies. It wasn't rabies.
Honestly, and again, I mean this respectfully.
It's fine.
Yeah, sorry. All I was going to say is that obviously you're saying, and I don't know whether we're here to talk about COVID, but if we are, then what is it about the official narrative that you're so comfortable in believing? Is it just the fact that the news tells you something that you're prepared to accept that? And I don't want to say the whole thing. Do your own research because it sounds conspiratorial and all of that good stuff. But for me, when it came to vaccines, they were novel vaccines. So therefore, they'd never been tested, right? So for me, it was like a big experiment. And that's what, got me thinking. I'm like, hold on. I don't want to take something. I ended up taking it. I wish I hadn't. But I don't want to take something that we can't possibly know the results of it because it's literally straight off the shelf. So what I found was during the whole COVID thing, people with my opinion were made to, feel like conspiracy theorists and all the rest of it. But actually, we were probably in the majority.
It's true.
Yeah.
Not the pharmaceutical companies didn't test it, whether it's going to be transmittable. They've admitted
it all.
They've actually admitted they did not even test it.
It wasn't the
And they
news
said
telling
that
you that COVID's bad. It was scientists telling you they have the research to demonstrate that there was something dangerous and lethal now happening. It wasn't the news. The news was just merely reporting what the World Health Organization, were observing. And all WHO was doing was reporting the facts on the ground.
Based on figures from Shagger Ferguson.
They have to deal with on an everyday premise. So it wasn't news. The majority of scientists, which is how science works. Science works on the majority, yes.
Science is a democracy.
No, majority.
Science works on observation
in your head,
and repeatability, doesn't it? Without having any test samples,
This isn't what I started to talk about. I don't mind. It's cool. That's what happens with speaking school. We're going off road now.
We'll get back to where you want to be, mate. But if you want to,
the only thing I'd say, just to kind of meet you in a bit of a middle ground, so I think that's better than us being.
100%. Yeah, I mean, I completely agree.
I totally understand where people were sceptical about it because the information was very confusing that was coming from Bojo, who was fucking useless at everything.
Yeah.
Well, whilst they were busy having parties, people were dying. So, you know, whatever. So I totally get why you would be skeptical. It's when the information isn't clear to people.
But then, surely now, with that hindsight, these are the guys who were telling you the message, right? Bojo and all his boys and girls were telling you that there was a virus that is so dangerous, we all have to stay in our homes. But you now know that those very same people were having parties, yeah? So if they're giving the message, they obviously didn't believe the message.
Yeah, but
And you're also telling me that you would believe those very people again, the same system. And going back to what you said about the WHO and scientists, is there a conflict of interest between the WHO and pharmaceuticals?
No.
There's no conflict. There is.
I was trusting the science.
You know what happened?
No, there's a conflict between capitalism and science. That's the
but
conflict.
if I may, why does it surprise you that if you have a problem, that there isn't going to be a portion of both control, government, money, whoever, that is going to profit and advantage from it? It doesn't matter whether it's COVID or a train problem or anything else. It's a legitimate, real problem that the corrupted part of our cultures, whether it's where I'm from or here, they're always going to try to profit from it. It doesn't take away from the real problem. It just means that you have a group of assholes who are always going to asshole.
That is a very, very legitimate point. However, for me, I don't think it's too far of a leap to suggest that maybe people might actually try to, you know,
it wasn't about COVID.
create something to profit from. You see what I'm saying? That to me is a big leap.
The reason I wanted to bring up these things that the Tories are talking about and what they want to promote is because it's ultimately harmful. It might sound a bit extreme to connect these dots, but if you think about it, when for the Nazis to succeed in what they wanted to achieve, for them to grow, it had to start somewhere, and it had to start by planting seeds. Okay, by planting seeds of absolute hate. That's where it had to start. That's the only way you start this process. So they had to start giving people reasons to hate Jewish people, other human beings, gay people, people that were not in line with a far right kind of idea. It started long before 1939. Obviously, it started in the early 30s. They were starting to butcher people and kill people before it got to the gas chambers. But the ultimate goal, the end goal of this kind of hate becoming normal is a Nazi regime. The Tories at the moment, our government, may not see Nazi. You may not see those flags hanging from the House of Parliament today. But it doesn't mean it can't happen. And we have to be aware of, if we are on that path, we have to get off that path as quickly as possible.
So who's the alternative then? Are the Labour Party the alternative, or are they two cheeks of the same arse? Because from where I'm looking, it's the same thing.
It's a horseshoe theory.
Yeah.
It's a horseshoe theory.
By me attacking the Tories, it doesn't mean that I'm supporting
I'm asking the question.
Because it's an easy kind of assumption to make.
And technically, it's New Labour, not the Labour. Jeremy Corbyn was the Labour Party.
I agree with that. I agree with that. I like
Keir
Jeremy Corbyn.
Starmer, Tony Blair, that's New Labour, and they are Tories through and
100%.
through.
Yeah, I completely
But
agree.
there is a distinction.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Yeah.
So my point was to try and promote awareness. Hopefully people are aware of what's happening, but it's to try
I've got nothing to
promote more
community. I'm not even going to get into that one.
More awareness of what the far right would like
honestly,
to achieve,
it's
because they are
people
trying
deciding
to
as
achieve
well,
it right now, and I don't see
I
much
don't
in their
think
path
it's
to
necessarily
stop
supports
them.
Hamas.
The thing that can stop them, the thing that can slow them down, is by people coming together, by people protesting, by people saying, no, we disagree. We don't want to see more oil companies become richer. We don't want to see our air more polluted. We don't want to see our kids grow up in a country far worse than the one we grew up in. We have a responsibility
to make the world better for the next generation. We're
Yes.
only here for a very small amount of time. However long it might be in the whole space of time, it's not very much. We've got a responsibility to try to do the best we can for the next generation that comes along. We cannot afford to go, oh fuck it, I'm dead, doesn't matter. We have a responsibility to the next generation that comes along. And they can only do better when we give them the best tools to do that. So if we don't protect our right to protest and our right to mobilise and our right to speak, then how on earth are they going to have a chance?
So have you mentioned the online harms bill then? Is that something that you've been talking about? Have you heard of the online harm
I'm
bill?
not aware. It's just about laws.
Because I think it might be an act now, or it might be in the laws.
Yeah.
But basically, it's about controlling. Well, it's ostensibly about if there's dodgy content on Facebook or whatever, like stuff to do with paedophilia or anything really dodgy, then it's incumbent on the platform to make sure it's taken down. But the bill also includes misinformation and disinformation, right? So then the question is, who is the arbitrator of what is disinformation and misinformation? And that's going to be a law. I think it's in the laws now. It might already be an act, which means that it basically means that if you say something that goes against the narrative that is the official, sponsored narrative, then that content has to be taken down. So therefore, voices start getting removed. You might say something that goes against the narrative. You might put it on your YouTube channel and it gets removed, and no one ever gets to hear what you're saying. That's happening now. So I think that links strongly with what you're saying about the right to protest.
Can you give an example of something that's been removed?
Well, I don't. Well, as I say, it's only just become an act, so I don't think necessarily.
So you don't know example of something that's been removed?
Well, I
yet?
don't know whether it has yet, but I do. But it makes the facility for it. So let's say, I don't know. I'm trying to think of something that we would find middle ground on, where you would have, the same opinion as me, that might go against what is like an official narrative. The point is that someone has to be the arbitrator of what is misinformation and disinformation. Whereas if you actually have free speech, then you should be able to say anything.
No, that's not what free speech means.
Well, it is in America.
And not even in America.
I'm assuming you're in
America.
Americans have
because
free
you can get
speech.
sued for libel.
We don't have free
You can
speech.
still get sued for libel. There's no such thing as free speech.
Free speech. Well, put it this way: Americans have got more free speech than we do. Definitely.
You can get sued for libel.
You can't be sued for libel. More
As in this
importantly,
country.
you cannot say something that will cause harm to another, such as fire in a fire.
Right, yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah.
But other than that, you can pretty much stand.
But you see, you can incite hatred in America, right? The Ku Klux Klan are free to incite hatred, where you're not free to incite hatred here. So you have.
That's not free speech.
That's not free.
That's not free speech.
We are arguing and
No,
debating
exactly.
over
That's the
hate
thing.
speech as well.
There's a difference
Trying to
between free
find out what
speech
it is.
and free speech absolutism, where you literally say anything. So there's a balancing act, obviously. I am against inciting hatred, obviously.
And also,
But I'm worried about this misinformation,
the Ku
disinformation.
Klux Klan is a political party. It's just not a random individual spouting out some random nonsense. It's a political party with a political agenda that has very dominant power in the hierarchy of America then as today. It's not just a random person drunk on something. It's a political party. They should not be allowed free speech when they're attacking a lady here because her colour's
So
wrong.
you can't let terrorists have free speech.
Yeah, of course you can.
So you said something that actually impacted me when you said, regardless of how we feel, we have to do something, right? So from what I'm hearing, Tory and Labor, sort of the same thing for me. The opinion that I and many Americans have is I have Mafia A and Mafia B.
Yeah.
I got outlaw group A and outlaw group B. Which group of outlaws is going to rob me the least? That's my binary choice. So when I go forward, I have a sense of hopelessness. So like, I don't care. I don't want to talk about it. It does nothing. How do you get from where, because maybe you people feel the same way, how do you get to a place where I can actually care? Because right now I go home, I'm like, I don't even want to hear about it because it's hopeless.
He's someone who's in the light. He's coming from a famous family of actors.
Because even if that politician has a good intention in the beginning, in order for him to become anything in our system, he must corrupt. He must. He or she, they will be. only
less
2%
people
of the American
get some followers
Congress
in the beginning,
and
as a family are going to see us going crazy.
the entire Congress, only 2% are not millionaires.
Yeah, that's insane.
I don't need to sound that
So,
large.
so they do not represent any of us.
Die on that hill.
You asked the question, how do you do it? You do it by being an individual who lives a values-based life. And every day you challenge racism, you challenge the shit that you see. We can't change the system, nobody can. But we can take responsibility every day when we get up, who am I going to be and how am I going to change the world?
But honestly, I agree. And I actually think, though, that can change the system. If enough people do that, then the system can change. You know, that's the thing. The only strength we have is our numbers. You know, ultimately that's it. And as long as people are kind of quiet and just plod along, nothing's going to change. Nothing's going to change. That's the reality.
Do you think groups like maybe what you're saying in America or these very rich, do you think they use hate to divide people?
100%. Yeah. That's the standard playbook, isn't it?
Yeah. So how would you say we combat that hate? How would you?
Well, I think
go against that?
as on a human level, people need to come together and realise that. I mean, I know it sounds cheesy, but we all have so much more that connects us as people than we have that divide us.
Yeah.
And most people who hate other people have never sat down and had a conversation with the people that they think they hate. That's the reality of it. That's why I love London, because London is so multicultural. Yeah. Whereas if you go to the provinces, you will find more of the, you know, sort of bigoted opinions. I'm not saying that's, you know, definitely the case, but you do tend to find people they believe the tabloid sort of, you know, news. So I think, going back to your question, we need to somehow get communication. We need people to come together as different communities and actually, you know, spend time, get to know each other and realise that actually, yeah, we're all pretty much exactly the same.
It's the responsibility of anybody who chooses to bring a child into the world. The most important gift is the gift of empathy. And you teach them empathy before reading, writing or anything else, because that's how we create a peaceful, inclusive world.
Oh, you said it beautifully. You could come up here and speak after me. I can't fall out of a job. Yeah, I'm out of my job. You can come up. Please come up and. The other thing I was kind of going to speak about, but it kind of goes with what you were saying there. So I've recently done like a kind of video debate, and it was to do with how music speaks truth about human beings. I say music, but it's like art, poetry, and kind of creative outlets. So you'd probably be in agreement with me that to build better communities and to bring this together, things like music does that, because music speaks about human tragedy.
Music speaks to here.
Exactly.
It goes here after. It goes here first.
It touches here. Classical music written 200 years ago, whatever, still
resonates, doesn't it? Yeah.
There's no words, there's no lyrics.
Yeah.
It's just music. And then you can make it even more powerful with poetry and words and so much more. So I think, I'm sure you would say this isn't an argument, music, creative outlets are a brilliant way for us all to come together, because there's no division in that. All your politics are thrown aside. When you hear the first...
No, I don't agree.
No?
with you.
Okay. Why not?
Cool. There are certain music that are pushed forward. Like, for example, like, I'm of the time of hip hop.
Yeah.
And, you know, before all of the hip hop that I was listening to, like Public Enemy or KRS-One, they were political and they were talking to the people. And then they pushed gangster.
Yeah.
And then it all changed.
Hang on, when you say they, you mean the capitalists, the rich kids thought we can't be having this folk music giving out spells of brilliance. It must be spells of hatred. But that's capitalism.
Well, it actually is, because the people who own the record companies deliberately push gangster rap to fill the prisons. The very same people owned the for-profit prisons in America. So that literally is a fact. But it's kind of right. It is a valid point, because music actually is, in a sense, you can see it as a tool in a way. Although it is an ethereal thing, it depends where the direction is going. So I agree with what you're saying, but it depends on the music. Because if the message of the music is negative, I mean, sometimes I find myself guilty of it. I mean, I'm 47 now, and I sometimes listen to like stuff that I would not be listening to, like drill music from London or whatever. Somehow I find myself listening to it and I think, my God, this is appalling. But I even quite like it. So exactly. So can you imagine what it's like if you're a teenage boy listening to that? It's going to say, because the message is so bad.
No, it's a double standard, because on one hand you say, well, we can't have hate speech, but on the other hand you say we can have this music that denigrates this young woman and turns her into a piece of an object to be obliterated. That's a double standard. That's, oh, I want my pie and I want to eat it too. You can't have both. You can't stand here and rail against something full of hate and then turn around and say, but this is our art. If you're going to regulate one, regulate the other.
I don't think he was saying anything.
No, not him specifically. I'm speaking in the general.
I mean, remember there was a time when people went heavy metal.
Oh, I lived it.
You have to remember, you have to remember there was a time, 80s?
Yeah, the 80s, yeah.
Everyone that was in the heavy metal bands, it was suddenly the devil's music and it was suddenly bad, and there was a reason to go and hate heavy metal people. They weren't bad
what I'm
people
asking
at
is,
all.
why do we have that double standard? Why is it okay for black death metal to speak something, or drill to speak something, but then remove the beat and the rhythm, and suddenly it's not okay to say the same thing?
Oh, I see what you're saying. So what, actually, yeah, that's a really spot on point. Because what you're saying there is, they actually have free. They are, in a sense, that is free speech absolutism, because they are literally on YouTube talking about going and killing XYZ or whatever. But then if you take the music away and they stood right here and said, let's go and then that's a good point. That is a good point. Yeah.
So I don't understand how that's a difference.
Yeah.
Why one is censorship and control and the other is protective law.
Creative freedom. No, but I know I'm being sarcastic. Yeah. You've had a good point.
Yeah.
Maybe it's something in here
that says creative freedom or something.
The rich want hatred to be sowed into our communities. That's why Fox News exists. There's no difference between gangster rap and Fox News. Both promote profound hatred. Both of them profit from that hatred and war and weapon sales. And both of them should be banned.
So are we
Fox
saying
News should
that
never be allowed
Swedish
to
death metal is influenced by the rich?
rich.
Or maybe that's just a part of humanity.
Yeah, well, that's true. One thing I would say though is, if something gets big, the likelihood is when the music gets big, then the people who are profiting from it are, big multinational corporations.
Comes back around to that point I made, which was that when you have something happen, there's always going to be a group of people who are going to,
I might try and drive this back to where
Yeah.
I was going. I like it. Don't get me wrong. It's good.
In all fairness, I congratulate you. I came here to experience this, to political and social speech, and you gave me that event, so thank you very much.
Awesome, man.
That's awesome.
This is being recorded on my YouTube channel, which is called The Age of Dust, and I am Dust. So go to the YouTube channel and you'll see many videos of this immense quality of brilliant individuals like this.
YouTube is a capitalist organisation.
Yeah, there's a lot of contradictions going on here.
And then I said it wasn't.
Which is censored.
Just to bring it back to the power of music,
You can't self-censor.
because I'm very
You
passionate
can't
about
self-censor.
music, actually.
Yeah, obviously.
So that you don't become
My whole character is what I love,
and then you'll be allowed on
your
YouTube.
That's
way I
true.
wouldn't be me.
That's how it works, isn't it?
Say anything
You
wrong,
have to admit the power of what you can do
Say anything you want
in a band.
certain
And
paragraph.
I've experienced it playing in a band, and I've experienced it being on the other side of that band playing on stage, and being in that audience when that energy captures everyone in a moment. All our differences are put aside for that little bit of time, because we're all there to enjoy that music, and we love it. I didn't realise just how many people were watching Live Aid when Freddie Mercury went on stage. And I looked it up. There was an audience of 1.9 billion in 150 nations across the world that tuned in to that one event. They didn't have YouTube or any of that stuff. They all tuned into that one event. For 20 minutes, one band took that stage, one man had the audience in his hand, and the ability to pull everyone together with the power of music was incredible. Now, is there a way we can tap into that and champion that? Because it does a beautiful, brilliant thing for everyone, and I think that's incredibly moving. When you watch it back now, you still get tingles, and I just think that's an incredible thing. And I wonder why that isn't championed more in today's society.
Well,
why there isn't proper funding for musicians.
I mean, so many different sources of media, isn't there? Back then there's 3 channels on the telly, weren't there? Now there's hundreds of thousands. It'll never happen now.
Follow me on YouTube.
It'll never happen now, will it? It can't.
Well, I mean, you still have power. The power of music. It's still an incredible tool. But I was just wondering why.
Yeah, but it was only coming from a handful of media sources then. Now there's thousands of media sources. So you can't do that now. It's technology's changed. It's impossible.
I don't think it's
practically impossible.
Yeah, it's like,
Do you know what I mean?
it's like in those days, it's like
In the 80s, there was
three
3
channels.
on
Yeah,
telly.
exactly.
That's your choice.
Yeah, yeah,
Now
yeah.
there's thousands.
People's
People's
attention.
There's 2 types of chocolate. You're going to take one or the other, yeah?
Yeah.
You go there now, there's hundreds.
You make your own entertainment. People tune into their own channels and build it on. You know, the algorithm gives you what you want to watch. I don't even watch TV. I mean, like everybody, I'm kind of controlled by my.
What are you trying to?
Anyway, so the point I'm just going to finish up. The power of music is an incredible tool that we can use to bring us together. And the more we have outlets to be creative, the more we have that freedom to express ourselves as individuals, to then come together and share what we have in common, which is to be human.
I love the idea.
And to use poetry and art and music.
And believe.
The one thing I will say though, yeah,
and sympathy
the one,
to
I mean,
other people.
I do think you're sort of pissing in the wind, to use a foul expression, because, like you say, there's so many different channels, yeah. However, what you're actually saying is right. What you're saying is right. In schools and in society, we should be teaching kids to be. Well, no. That's what they do now. But I was going to say, tap into that more spiritual realities rather than just the material stuff. But don't worry about it, man. To be honest with you,
So let me just finish this one. Some lyrics that I just wanted to finish. The point of the music. Oh, music,
Quite sinister.
yeah, well, do you know what it is?
Whereas what we have here is for hate, people, and I'm hoping that what I can give you is something a bit more positive rather than more hatred. So I want to use a little line, Frank Turner, and he's got a brilliant album called Be More Kind. And the line I want to give you is this one. In a world that has decided that it's going to lose its mind, be more kind, my friends, try to be more kind. It's that simple. It's not complicated. It's not difficult at all. So, thank you for listening.
Yay! Thank you very much.
Well, they're doing this. Take more money.